So your story is really interesting. I'm really excited to talk to you today because I think your story is very relevant to your work. You know, we spoke briefly about that, so I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about that today. So, let's start with that. Tell us a little bit about your story, because I know that you left a narcissistic relationship, which, you know, I'm sure was really difficult at the time. And so I'm interested in, you know, what that was like really, and what you learned, you know, through that process. So how did you know? How did you know that you were in a narcissistic relationship, I guess, first of all?
Good question. I knew because I looked it up on the internet. I remember searching on Google. I don't know how I came across it. Maybe I saw a YouTube video or something of the sort, but I just remember looking online and learning about a narcissistic relationship and all of the things that were there, you know, the gaslighting, the invalidating your feelings, all came up. And that's when I realized. But just a bit of backstory. So there's basically like three main phases of my journey. So like from before, like in my like early 20s, just, you know, your normal average woman living her life, figuring it out. But then I actually had a spiritual awakening in 2012, and that changed everything because it opened my eyes to a new reality and a new sense of self and a connection to, I guess, spirit, oneness, you know, the universe. And I came across this concept of the twin flame. You may have heard of it. I think many of us have. So I was looking at it through that lens of this is like a twin flame relationship. And we experienced this like awakening together, or so I thought. So I think the most difficult thing for me in that relationship was, I think, maybe separating what I was also seeing as, you know, it's like this runner dynamic or this difficult twin flame relationship that you're navigating versus these narcissistic qualities. You know, it was like, which one is which? Is this like a spiritual connection or, you know, is this just a purely narcissistic relationship and I'm in a trap?
Yeah, so do you mean that you were sort of questioning, well, is this part of my growth, you know, kind of thing? But describe that twin flame spiritual awakening. I haven't actually heard of that concept. What?
Oh
No,
no.
what's explain that a little bit for us.
Yes. So there's this concept that you can have soulmates in this lifetime where you can connect with someone and it's like familiar. You've lived a past life with them and you just, you know, you're destined to be together. But when it comes to twin flame, it's this concept that this is literally the other half of, not half, but like your soul just in a different vessel, basically. So it's literally a mirror of you. And if you have unintegrated parts of yourself, your shadow self, or parts of yourself that you're yet to heal, then that's what's very uncomfortable within that twin flame dynamic, because they're going to mirror back the greatness of you. In the beginning, it's perfect, you know. It's like you're in this amazing, heightened, loving union. But when it shifts, when it changes, and then I guess it's time to do the integration work, that's when it can become difficult. So I think there's a lot of controversy around twin flames. Some people still believe in it. Some people think that it's a trap because you can get so locked into the thought, well, you know, we're meant to be, we're destined to be, so I have to endure. And that's very dangerous. And I feel like I fell for that. I was like, I have to endure this. I have to, you know, stay here and, you know, stay accepting this and allow them to grow. And if I love them more, then, you know, maybe they will change.
Wow.
the biggest trap.
Yeah, I can see how confusing it can be in a narcissistic relationship anyway. But then when you've got that added, well, it's supposed to feel uncomfortable because it's showing up these parts of me that need healing. So, this is necessary. That makes it quite tricky, doesn't it, to identify then? Because it's confusing anyway. And then you've got that added, no, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to feel challenged. I'm supposed to feel uncomfortable and all those things. So how did you navigate that? What was it that made you start to question, hang on a minute. So you found it on the internet, you started to see red flags, I guess. So the level of confusion then you started to question some things. What happened next then? How did you gain the strength? Because, a narcissistic relationship is going to chip away at you, isn't it? It's going to really erode any trust that you had in yourself, and make you question your own thoughts and reality, actually. So how did you gain the strength? What got you through, and what got you to the point where you thought, no, that this isn't right, and I need to leave?
Yeah. I feel like I want to say that there's always like a breaking point in these dynamics where the one who associates himself with being more like the empath, the sensitive one, the one on the receiving end of the abuse, reaches that limit. And I think, it just reached that point where I was at my breaking point. And I just remember there was two significant points that stood out for me. There was one morning where, and the thing that helped, I want to just say, we was not living together. We was living separately. So I think that helped massively, because when I've worked with clients when they're actually living with their partner, it's a lot harder because there's not really much escape out of it. But I had those moments of respite because I could have some space to myself to try and calibrate to some sort of norm and to kind of be in my own energy and in my own perspective for, long enough to let something crystallize. Yes, maybe, I could go and have a conversation with them and that would go completely out the window. But I still had those moments, which I think is important. So this morning then, I decided I'm going to put myself first today because, all of the self-abandoning, the people-pleasing, and just the primary focus of the other person, I was like, I'm going to have a day for myself. But then I got on the phone to them and it was like, I'm really unwell and, you're not here for me, and, the guilt trip. And then immediately I could just feel my soul weeping as I put on my clothes, got ready, got my car keys, and then drove down there to look after them when I was in need of a day to myself. So that was very significant because, when I got there, it was not nice. And I was like, why am I doing this?
Did you have that awareness at that point? I love the way that you say that, the self-abandonment. Did you have the awareness at that time to know that it feels like I'm literally abandoning myself here? Or did that come later?
Maybe on some level. It might have been on some level, but not loud enough to stop me at the time, So that's why I said I felt this, like my soul was weeping. It's because there's almost like a part of you that's watching you, and I guess that part that, maybe is your higher self, is always there watching. And I guess from that perspective, but your current self-perception or your current level of consciousness is still very much looped in and trapped into the dynamic. So that was the first experience. And then the other experience was just similar. It was just something that we had planned, didn't go to plan, and it was a genuine mistake that I made. And they were blaming me for it and, just calling me all the names under the sun, calling me stupid and stuff for just an honest mistake. And I think, you know, just bearing in mind at the time, like I was doing so much to stay afloat because I was still training to be a psychotherapist at the time. I still had clients that I was seeing, so I was holding it together, had a caseload, you know, I had assignments to do. And over a trivial thing, I'm getting this massive backlash. That was something in me just flipped. I just remember screaming, like this voice just came out of me. I just remember screaming, I will not settle for less anymore, you know?
Wow.
And I feel like saying that, I guess it confirmed what I was doing, just settling.
I've got goosebumps.
Holding on.
I've got goosebumps hearing that. That sounds like a real defining moment.
Yeah, it was, Angeline, honestly. It really, really was. And I feel like that moment, I will not settle for less, that is what, I guess, started the process of me working towards finally healing, I guess, the self-abandonment, the not valuing myself, valuing someone else over me, and I guess wanting to believing being chosen and being loved by somebody, so much so that I completely lost myself in the connection. And it was very deep, because it was also, as I said, tied to this spiritual awakening path at the same time, because it was a spiritual awakening, it was a love awakening. But then what people don't realize is that once you've had this awakening to this heightened levels of love and bliss and connection, if you haven't done the integration work, the foundation work, and the energetic work and the healing to be able to sustain that, eventually that high is going to wear off. And you're going to go and experience the descent. So as high as you went, as low as you're going to go, you know. So I think people mistake this. People mistake the spiritual awakening for the dark night of the soul, or the depression, or, you know, the low period of time, the identity crisis, you know, that dark period in your life where you're forced to confront your patterns, your programming, who you've been, the roles you've been playing, even the world, society, everything that's like illusion of that's not real, you know, that is false. You're going to witness all of that. And that is painful. So I was experiencing that. And at the same time, the disillusionment of the relationship as well. So it was like, and for me, it came out in that narcissistic dynamic to show me where you're not loving yourself, you're not valuing yourself, you're self-abandoning. And then, you know, with the world, you know, there's, you know, so much darkness going on, whereas before I was just in a bubble, you know. That's why I said, like, the first phase of my life, I was just going through the motions. I'm going to go to uni, you know, I'm going to have a partner, and, you know, envisioned I would just go through the normal milestones of life as normal. But no, that awakening changed everything, because then, and at the same time, because I was studying as well to be a psychotherapist, I'm learning existentialism. You know, what does it mean to exist? What is existence? You know, phenomenology, philosophy, all of these things that is literally opening up my mind. And then you're having therapy as well. So you're looking at yourself. So it was just like, and I think I learned about energies and chakras there as well. And I learned about meditation. So Angeline, like, everything was open. So yeah. That's why I just went to say that it was so deeply spiritual that it's hard to separate it from just saying, oh yeah, I just went through a narcissistic relationship. You know, it was a whole identity kind of like collapse. Wow. And then rebuilding, restructuring, and self-discovery. Who am I really then? If I'm not this character, this role that I've been playing that has led me here to experience this, then who am I? And the moment of who am I and not knowing who you are, it's quite a scary place, a dark place to be in, of not knowing who you are. The anxiety, the low mood, the depression, the disconnection, opposite to everything that I guess a spiritual awakening, where you feel enlightened, you feel connected, you know who you are.
I love that.
Complete opposite to that.
I love that. And just coincidentally, I've just recorded a solo podcast on that very thing, to knowing who you are. I mean, it sounds like an absolute baptism of fire, really, what you went through. And I love hearing this story because, you know, the work that you do now is not only you're, you know, qualified and trained and experienced, but this is coming from a place of real healing and real, a solid foundation of knowing who you are. And so it's not just that you've got a qualification and, you know, that you're working with people. It's coming from a place of real empathy. And I think that empaths will really relate to your story of that self-abandonment, and how tricky it is, because we want that validation, don't we? We want to feel needed. We want to be a nice person. We take on these identities. And I like the way you talk about survival identity, which is, you know, exactly what you're talking about. We step into these roles, these expectations, in order to feel valued, in order to find, you know, have a place and feel connected with somebody, where we are sometimes vulnerable to narcissistic relationships. Empaths are a little bit vulnerable to that, because we know how to take care of the other person. We know how to put their needs first and abandon our own. So there's so many people that will relate to this. So you talk about survival identity and the transition to authenticity, really, which is knowing who you are. So what a powerful story. I mean, how does that impact your, you know, what you see? You help women predominantly, I think, and we talk, you know, obviously the podcast is focused on women in their 40s and 50s, because when we get to that age, and sometimes late 30s as well, we start to question things, don't we? And we start to say, hang on a minute, you know, I'm a bit tired of being everything to everyone. I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm not appreciated. I'm not taken seriously in relationships. I have no voice. Who am I? You know, those types of questions. So what do you come across? What's the most difficult thing that women struggle with in going through this baptism of fire, really, in questioning the roles that we've adopted according to our culture, maybe, and our conditioning, the things that we've learned how to function in the world in order to keep safe, really, which will often will get in the way of us moving towards our authentic selves. What do you find is most difficult for women in this process?
It's difficult to name just one thing, but what's coming to mind is a session I just had today, and this is someone who is naturally programmed for that kind of savior complex. You know, just her role is based on wanting to help others, like go to the ends of the earth, you know, for others, because I think that is reinforcing her sense of I'm valued, I'm needed, and that's, I guess, how she's just learned to kind of, I guess, function in her relationship. So with that, boundaries is such a massive thing, and to be fair, that is a kind of across the board. Boundaries that are recognized as well as reinforced and followed through consistently over time, without guilt and without compromising, and knowing that those boundaries are needed, even if that means that certain relationships, connections, jobs even, they fall away, you know. And that can be difficult, because as soon as you start evolving into not even a new identity, like more true to yourself, and you start putting your needs first and you start speaking up and you start enforcing these boundaries, people who are used to you playing small or used to you saying yes all the time, or, you know, just used to you not being in your power, suddenly they might start reacting in a way that is undesirable. And then that can cause the issue of, oh, I don't want to rock the boat, or I've upset them. And then so you soften your boundary or you retract it. And then the cycle can kind of repeat and keep you looped in. So boundaries is something so important, because you can't evolve and expand your identity and free yourself from survival conditioning and programming if you don't know how to put the boundaries in place, and that prevent you from falling into the old patterns and allowing that old identity to still keep showing up, running the show. Yeah,
absolutely. And the resistance that can bring, and you can lose some relationships along the way, can't you, in this process? And that's the fear sometimes. You know, rocking the boat, they're not going to like me, you know, they're not going to want to be with me anymore, whatever it may be. And they're the fears then that, like you say, make it difficult to sustain the boundaries sometimes. And that's a red flag as well, isn't it? Where if somebody is putting up that resistance and saying, oh, I don't like this, you know, why are you being like this? You know, when you're starting to put in some more higher expectations for yourself, really. If somebody does show some resistance there and doesn't like it, that's a red flag to question, you know. Well, has this person got my best interest at heart here, you know? I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to develop, you know. People that are healthy relationships they'll be saying, this is great, I'm loving seeing these changes in you. You know, that's what we can look out for, isn't it, when we're trying to go through this process. But yeah, that fear, the initial fear of placing those boundaries and then sustaining it, it's very real, isn't it? It's right at the beginning of the process. And I think people struggle to know what's fair as well. You know, that barometer of, am I expecting a bit too much here? Oh, well, the other person is probably, they're struggling with something. Maybe I shouldn't, you know, maybe I shouldn't expect this. And I think that empaths really struggle with what's fair to expect. Should I be expecting this? You know, how do you help women navigate that bit? You know, to know what's reasonable here.
See, this is a thing. I always say to my empath clients, you are elite when it comes to empathizing with others and being understanding and compassionate to what somebody else is going through. But what you are not yet fully confident in is, I guess, having that compassion towards yourself and putting yourself first and foremost, and then I guess framing what others are doing like secondary to that, because most people are thinking of their needs first, but it's not. Empaths are not wired that way. It's always, oh, they're feeling this, or they're feeling that. So I usually say you kind of have to start embracing like your villain era. And I don't mean this to say, you know, start being cold, detached, selfish and mean. I don't mean that. But I mean, you need to really be unapologetically honest with yourself, with your standards. What are your standards now? And know that you're not wrong for having these standards. Because when you don't have standards, or when you're continuously, I guess, rearranging your standards around what other people are doing, again, there's no solid foundation. There's no like, this is my value, this is who I am, and therefore let me allow the process of my connections to reorganize themselves around this. Even if that means certain people fall away. You know, that's very difficult to do. Because if you're afraid to be alone, or you're afraid to let go of relationships because, oh well, we've been together for so long, or whatever keeps you attached to a relationship, even if they're continuously not meeting your needs that deep down you know you're worthy of. And in most cases it's the bare minimum. Honestly, it's the bare minimum. So I always say you have to get comfortable with releasing this need to be this good person, you know, this kind, be seen as this kind-hearted person, and being the hero and the heroine in every person's story. When you can get comfortable being the potential villain in somebody else's story, that's when you start reclaiming your true power. Because otherwise we're just operating on an identity that we have to be liked, we have to be nice, we have to just continuously only be considerate of other people's needs all the time. We're a master at that. We know how to consider other people's needs. We can't not do that. We need to integrate this part of ourselves now so that we can come into our balance. And that means knowing and raising your standards and really asking yourself, what do you value? What do you need? How do you expect to be treated? And usually it's how you, it's not, you know, people say, you know, I expect other people to treat me the same way that I treat them. And, you know, I think that's tricky in and of itself as well, because we can't always expect people to care for us the same way we do. But knowing that person and because each dynamic has a different thing. Each person kind of can be supportive in a different way or offer a different way. And if that basic in terms of what they have capacity for is not being met, then there's something seriously wrong there. I hope that made sense.
It does make sense. I think
Anthony.
You're talking about the basic human needs, really, which is to feel valued, to feel listened to feel understood, or at least that they're attempting to understand. Even if that involves, I don't fully understand, but, you know, that's the way you feel. And so I respect that. And, you know, what do you need from me? These are the kinds of things that, like you say, it's not a lot to ask for somebody to just hear us in our truth, really, and, you know, give us a hug or just listen. That's really, and validate how we're feeling. That's all we're asking for a lot of the time, isn't it? Where, you know, I think that when we're trying to decide whether we're expecting too much, if we think about, actually, no, that's all I'm asking for here. And for me to be able to decide what we're doing at the weekend sometimes, you know, in an equal, you know, it's like little practical things as well, where we're being considered in what we would like to do as well, and what we would like to have, and those types of things. You know, and we're living within our families, so that's a collaborative thing. And of course we consider others. Like you say, we're going to do that. We're going to overdo that. So it is about, I like to say it that we're at the bottom of the list, and often not even on the list. So let's put ourselves on the list. So when we think about what we expect for others, to try and integrate that we deserve those fundamental things in the same way, you know. So a great question to ask is, what would I be saying if a friend was struggling with this? What would I be saying to them? Would I be saying, yeah, that's a completely reasonable expectation, you know, that you should be treated that way, that you should be expecting that? Because sometimes empaths struggle to, like say, to identify that, don't they? They're masters, like you say, of being able to see it for others. So sometimes it's good to think about it as if it was somebody else.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Yeah. That is very, very helpful, because when you get into that, what would I say to others? I guess, again, that's our arena, you know. Well, if I was giving advice to somebody else, you know, you can see it clearly. But I think that the only risk with that, you know, using that only as the frame of reference, is that, again, you're not fully integrating honing in and validating your own needs in your own right, so it's, you can do that, but still always bring it back to what does my soul need, what do I need to feel good, and really work on that self-validation, self-worth, and I matter, my needs matter. I think that's the real work. But we have to use whatever technique is available to us, in the interim, until we can really let it sink in how valuable we are, and how important it is for us to be operating at an optimized level, glass full, overflowing, cup overflowing, not depleted. Not depleted. We show up better for everyone, for ourselves, for our family, for our work, for the world, when we are energized, and we have to fully know that. That's why I'm so strict with my boundaries now. I'm like the complete opposite to who I used to be, Angeline, honestly. I know when I need to retreat. I know when I need to withdraw my energy. I no longer, if like a friend is calling me, I no longer answer immediately. I see the phone ring. I check in with myself first. How am I feeling? Do I have capacity for this call? Or shall I wait and, acknowledge the call and the message and just say, hey, I hope you're okay. I'll get back to you at this. I'm dealing with this at the moment. That's something I never used to do before, because before it was either immediately go to answer, or I'm so overwhelmed I can't even respond, or I would just literally shut down and just be completely overwhelmed. And then days, weeks have gone past and no one's heard from me. And that's just because it was either immediately answer or shut down, overwhelmed for weeks, and that was a sign that my energy was not balanced, was not in harmony, and I didn't know how to navigate boundaries. And I think that's so common with a lot of my clients as well, the burnout, the overwhelm, and the contrast between being available or shutting down completely because you've maxed out and you've reached your limit.
This episode is sponsored by me. In my upcoming book, The Living Without Limits Method, I'm going to take you through the therapy process. If you've ever wondered what goes on in the therapy room, then I'm giving you front row seats. So lots of people are accessing therapy now because they want to live their best life. They want to become the best version of themselves, and they're tired of living the same patterns and getting the same results, just living small. So I'm really excited to give you access. Stay tuned and I'll keep you updated as to when the book is published. I think that's a really good point, and something that the listeners will relate to, because that's how it shows up, isn't it? That we feel overwhelmed, we feel anxious, and a lot of that is to do with we've got no control over our lives. People can come in and take what they like, and we end up depleted and we feel exhausted. And so I think that's a really important, way for people to recognise, actually, that's how I feel, that I don't have any agency. If the phone rings, I have to answer. If, there's this demand from this person or this place, the boss gives me extra work, I can't say no. That people pleasing, that's a real indicator, isn't it, that you're heading for, and we know that if we stay in that way of functioning, it leads to chronic illness a lot of the time. We know from all the research that our bodies will eventually start to tell us that something has to change, So that sounds really good. I love that you're coming from such a authentic, solid place, because you've done walked the walk, and gone through that baptism of fire to self-discovery. And so when you then start to trust yourself and build that sense of self, which is often really depleted, especially in narcissistic relationships. You lose yourself. You hear people say that. So I'm sure that people are quite inspired by, when you're working with them, they can, because I can feel that strength. I can feel that the energy that's coming from within you, really. And you touched on it earlier, that you operate from a full cup rather than, that survival identity, really, that you talk about, where we are behaving in a way that just depletes us completely. We're taking on those roles, whatever they may be. So what helps you stay grounded? What are your daily practices to keep yourself well? You help people, on a daily basis. So how do you replenish your batteries, so to speak, and keep connected with the essence of who you are?
Yeah. I would say my go-tos are journaling. I always journal because I have to stay connected with what's going on in my mind, in my psyche. I talk to myself, and also from my higher self as well. I channel my higher self to me, especially if I'm going through something where it might be a bit more challenging. Then I will kind of speak out my emotions so I can see how this is exactly how I'm feeling. And then I'll give a response to that. Okay, well, you're feeling like this, but remember this. I always stay in touch with my own inner guidance. Sometimes on a voice note as well. I send regular voice notes to myself. This just keeps me in a relationship with myself, basically, because that relationship we have with ourselves is the most important. And I guess from someone who has experienced what it's like to be disconnected from the self and instead only have like anxiety and, self-doubt and, all of the negative thoughts, the limiting self-beliefs and all of that. Now it's just nice, peaceful, loving union within myself. Because when you have that union, I feel like that internal union gets mirrored back to you in other relationships because you're in self-harmony. So writing, speaking to myself is a must. And it also just helps me make sure I'm processing and knowing what is my emotions, just in case I have picked up any emotions from my caseload or from my memberships or any of my containers or platforms. So there's that. And then the second thing is I like to move slowly in my own time. I don't like rushing. I don't like pressure. So I don't pack out my days, and like be fully booked with everything. I like to space things out. I like slow mornings. I like to take care of myself. Gym, sauna, spa, steam rooms, long baths. I take care of my body, my temple, that helps. Being in nature helps because it just reconnects me. And having boundaries, making sure that I'm honest. If, my mum's trying to call me or, I have stuff going on, I would just say, things have been a bit heavy lately. So I'm just processing a few things. I'll come back to you, when I have a bit more capacity or when I have a bit more space. And now everyone, all of my friends, family appreciate that. They know me for that because, as I said, once upon a time, I wasn't even able to communicate that, to express that. I didn't even know what I needed or what was going on. So having that clears a lot of space and, I don't feel that pressure from people demanding of me or wanting my energy anymore. And I do a lot of emotional, energetic hygiene as well. So energy clearing, making sure my space is always clear. So that, again, nothing stays stagnant. No energy can stay stagnant and heavy in my field, I like to stay light and keep everything free flowing. So yeah, and then staying grounded to my work and my mission, that helps me stay grounded because I'm always like just in tune with what is my mission, what am I doing, and how am I ensuring that I'm expressing myself, using my creativity, using my mind. It just keeps me, especially as someone who's highly spiritual, I have to stay grounded in the material world by creating, staying connected to my purpose and what I'm doing and all of that kind of good stuff as well. And, I'm someone who likes to, as I said, integrate all parts of me. So if you see me on social media, there might be like a bit of an acting skit where I'll act out something, there might be something where I'm expressing a theme or something through music, because I genuinely believe that we're not just here meant to be just one, I'm just this, I'm just a psychotherapist and this is all I can be and all I can reveal and show of myself. It's like, well, no, I'm actually this multi-layered, multi-dimensional being, and I've got so many different ways that I can express and share healing and embodiment and integration and well-being, wellness, freedom as well, freedom to just be our authentic self. So I pride myself on, not just teaching and holding space for others, but it's like I'm living this, I'm doing this, and this is what it feels like, this is what it looks like when you are actually allowing yourself to be free authentically and live from the soul, so all of that again keeps me grounded in who I am, like, as I'm not just only focused on this one aspect of me.
I love that. That's so powerful. And and I think that's really important, actually, that the importance of protecting the essence of who we are. That's an ongoing process to include the things in our lives that fill us up and that keep us connected, and that our decisions are based upon keeping us centered on the mission, or what our values and things like that all of our decisions, we need to say, okay, why am I doing this? Why would I say yes to it? Why would I say no to it? Or what's the intention around all that? So that sounds really powerful and a really important part of this process. It's not a I've arrived and now it's all cool. We're a work in progress, aren't we? And it's always keeping that in check, and I love the freedom that I sensed there, the freedom to be you. That has opened up different worlds for you. It's opened up different aspects of yourself where you can really express and reach more people, actually, because not everyone is going to access therapy. Somebody might hear you on social media and it might make sense to them, the messages that you're conveying there. Just out of interest, if you were to sum your mission up, what would it be? Can you sum it up? I know that it's broad, so it might be difficult.
Honestly, my mission is to, I guess, help people make sense out of the chaos and to reach a place where, even though life can be messy and difficult, there's certain patterns and themes that come up that when we understand them, we can allow them to end and shift into something new. And when we shift into something new, basically that is more integration and more embodiment of who we truly are. And it feels good. It actually feels good to be alive and live in this world when we've reclaimed our power back. So that is basically my mission, is to just to help people get through the chaos and the messiness out onto the other side, into this new paradigm that we are collectively shifting into now, which is very exciting. And it's an honor to be here. And I just want to echo what you said, like, in no way I'm saying I'm fully here, fully arrived. There's definitely moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, cringe, like it's definitely the messy middle where I'm like, what are people going to think? And I guess I'm still overcoming, is this safe? Is it okay to be seen like this? Are you safe to do this? And that's like my nervous system is like check-in, because as you grow and expand, you have to have your nervous system needs to be on board and to feel safe so that you can feel regulated while you expand as well. So I guess that's one thing I didn't mention, but that's something else that I kind of work on a lot, really work on my nervous system as well, because once, from going to just being a psychotherapist, when we're behind the scenes, just supporting people quietly, humbly in the background, and just doing all of this service without, I guess, being seen publicly, to then all of a sudden, like for you being on this podcast, you're being more visible, and it's just like, it is a big transition. And being on social media, being on LinkedIn and all of those spaces, it's like, we're coming out being seen now, and we kind of need to feel safe doing that, and safe being seen in the process of becoming. I think that is what I am doing now. I'm allowing people to see me imperfect in the process of becoming.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so beautifully put, and it's a pleasure, actually. It's a real pleasure to see your authentic self. I just can really feel that. I'm quite spiritual. I can really feel it. It's infectious. I can tell that people will be really positively touched by you and influenced just by the way that you are, and your living proof, and the life that you're living. You're walking the walk. You're not turning up and saying, this is what you should be doing. You're actually living this process, and so you know what it's like, and you know what it's like to go through it. And I think that the other thing that you talk about is that shift in identity in order to sustain any of this work that I was wondering, I guess, what would you say you had to leave behind? What belief about yourself and your identity, your old identity, I guess, in a way, of what you perceived yourself to be? What was one of the main things that you had to let go of, I guess, in that process, would you say?
It's tricky, because I guess there's a lot of things I had to let go of, but and it's difficult because you're mourning a version of yourself, and mourning, I guess, everything that version of yourself endured and went through, and also played a massive role in getting you to where you are now. Like, I love that version of myself, and sometimes it's not a case of you have to fully let that version of you die, because I do feel like I have died, like spiritually, and in terms of identity, the false self died. But whenever, even now, if that old version still comes back up, it's not like a no, you reject, die. It's more like I can meet that version of myself knowing that she just needs leadership. She just needs guidance. She just needs, okay, this is why you're feeling this. This is what we need to do. So it's more like the integration. But in terms of leaving behind, I guess it was definitely leaving behind a version of myself that would tolerate certain things and certain people. And that meant, I think the biggest thing was letting go of people that I thought would be in my life forever, and this is not to say that I might not reconnect with them further down the line, who knows, but letting go of that. And also, I guess, where I'm at now, I've let go so much that I don't even live in the UK anymore. I gave up my home. I gave up my gym membership, my spa membership. I gave up the area that I lived in for 7-8 years, which was like my retreat. I gave up, I guess, being close to my family. I gave up my job, my role at the university that I had, and all of my students that I saw. So it was giving up old aspects of myself, knowing that I can't be this version of me anymore, but also giving up, I guess, what it meant in terms of everything that that identity was attached to. And I've done it on the deepest level, you know, by letting go of everything. And now I'm in East Asia, completely unbound in this phase of accelerated expansion and growth, so that I can really see who am I now. Because when you when you leave what you've known before and you're in a completely different environment, then you see who you are, because you're the anchor. There's nothing external that is an anchor of who you've been previously. Now it's just you are the anchor. And when I travel from country to country, it's who am I here? Who am I here? Continuously, I'm this person. And I have my anchors within the freedom, which is, this must be who I am now, because this is nothing familiar. And if I do find something familiar, this must be part of who I am now.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, because what I heard in all that is that what you let go of are all the external things, the external validation, the role, the title, you know, in your job, and certain people that didn't match with the energy. And so what I was hearing there is that it's only things and situations and roles that you left behind. And the essence of who you are, she just needed nurturing. She needed to be validated. You know, she needed an arm around and to say, you're going to be okay, you know, we're going to get through this, and what you feel is valid. What you're going through is real. And this is powerful stuff. It really is. So that's the sense that I got of that the only thing you've brought with you is the essence of who you are.
When you put it like that, Angelina, wow. It's powerful, isn't it? Yeah.
Wow.
Because it was letting go of the comfort and the stability and the security as well, yeah. You know, as you know, having that job and a regular, letting go of that comfort to know that I am safe, as you said, I can handle myself, my life. Financially, I can provide for myself. And I think there's something about allowing your masculine energy and your feminine energy to really come online there. You know, the masculine side of you that is able to provide financial security and able to provide safety and, you know, make sure that you are safe and you've got the basic needs met. But then also the feminine energy, you know, free to explore and be curious and express and create and feel safe and feel seen. I really needed to merge those energies fully. And I guess, that is the essence of me, you know, the wholeness of me. And that balance is key, because for so long, my masculine energy was not in balance. And then I guess that masculine energy was mirrored back to me in relationships as well. So I'm always balancing polar opposites, you know. I'm really about wholeness. So that's why I always speak about two opposing things and, like, you know, balancing them out. So,
well, you know, this is a masterclass in living without limits. It really is, you know, and you mentioned quite a few of the 6 pillars there that we talk about on the podcast, such as exercise, nutrition, and reducing stress. And you have your own practices, and the importance of healthy relationships as well. You know, we've touched on that quite a lot today, because it's all important, isn't it? I think that if you're trying to do just one of those, I often say on the podcast, it's really difficult to sustain any of it. We need that wholeness, don't we, to focus on what we need and physically, to take care of ourselves physically as well, so that we feel strong and we have energy. And we know that nutrition affects our cognition as well, you know, how that we're able to think clearly and and think creatively and all that sort of thing that you talk about. So if you could, so I've got two questions here. If I'm sort of thinking, you choose, if you could say one thing to our listeners that maybe you might have wanted to say or hear yourself back when you were in the dark night of the soul, as you put it, what you might have wanted to hear, or what you feel might be helpful to our listeners to hear, what would it be? What would you want to say to them?
This is temporary. It will pass. And as much as possible, try to observe what is going on, observe the patterns, observe the feelings, and allow the process, because you are in a process of unraveling anything that is keeping you stuck and limited. And on the other side of that, you're going to feel much lighter. You're going to feel like your true self. You're going to be aligned with who you are. You're going to have a clear sense of direction. And just overall freedom and well-being awaits you on the other side. And if you are experiencing this, then you are a powerful, powerful individual who is doing powerful, meaningful work for the entire world. Because as you heal and go through this process, you are paving a way for others to do the same. Even if you don't even share this with anyone, I think sometimes you can't not share, you're like a walking testimony. But even if you don't, just the fact that you are existing and energetically, this is your experience, that's what you are putting out into the world, So somebody out there, at least one person, is picking up your signal of transformation. So just allow the process, and as much as possible, do what you can to connect with your version that is the version of yourself that is beyond your present circumstances, that eternal aspect, your higher self, the godly part of you, whatever you believe in that is outside of your normal everyday material world. Connect with that as much as possible, because that is going to keep you through. That's going to keep your faith lit up. It's going to give you that guidance to keep going, and the strength and resilience to keep going.
Absolutely, yeah. A message of hope, really, that, what you, and I find this all the time, and I'm sure you do as well with the people that you work with and the people that I speak to on the podcast, when we go through challenges and when we try to hide those parts of ourselves that we might be ashamed of, they're the parts that often they are going to help others. They often form, there are forged in fire bits, that have to be refined, and we learn from those experiences. So it's almost being grateful for those experiences, which is, obviously really difficult when we're in it. But I know that I can look back, and the things that I've been through, they've all taught me something, and it helps us empathise with others as well. And that's what I've heard from you today as well. You've got a real sense of what it's like to go through this process. And that in itself will be powerful for people. So anything else then that you could share with us as we're closing? If you think about a transformational moment maybe from somebody that you've worked with, something that they've said to you, or something that you've witnessed, what would that be? Can you think of anything off the top of your head in that regard?
Yeah, one client comes to mind that I've worked with, and I guess she was somebody who, again, just a similar empath path, empath dynamic, and kind of experience a lot of narcissistic relationships. And that left her feeling very, I guess, unsafe in her own body, and given her power away, and having a world view that just was kind of tainted, you know. I think that's the best way to describe it, tainted. But then at the same time, very high achieving, very brilliant at the work that she done, you know, very powerful, very, very powerful. But it's kind of like a identity kind of mismatch between who she was and how powerful, intelligent and successful she was, and then how she was actually seeing herself. So we worked a lot on how she saw herself, her self-concept, her self-perception, and a lot of, I guess, almost not defining, but almost like I guess refining how she saw every hardship that she went through in those situations, you know, because I'm a firm believer, like yourself, Angeline, that our biggest challenges are often there because they are often our most powerful gifts to the world. So when we done a lot of reframing of that, and a lot of shifting her perspective, and a lot of aligning herself with her true identity, and also meaning making of her actual purpose. I do a lot of that with my clients, helping them understand who you are, like really on a soul level, and why you're here. By the end of it, she, you know, her testimonial was like, I can honestly say I've healed from my past trauma. I feel so much more powerful now. I feel confident in my life. You know, I know who I truly am, you know, as a result of working with me. You know, and that is just an honor to hear that. When I hear things like that, it just makes me think, like, this is why I do what I do. And many clients say to me, you know, I've just got a way of helping them see their power, even if they can't see it. And I even just had a recent client just say to me that, you know, she had a first round of therapy with me, then we paused and she came back. She was ready the second time round because she just knew that if she's in therapy with me, I'm going to hold a reflection of like her higher self, her highest potential, you know, and that's, I hold space for both the depths of, I guess, who you've been and the pain that you've endured, but also the heights of your fullest expression at the same time. So that's just a snippet of the work that I do, you know.
Absolutely.
Reclaiming our true power.
That sounds amazing. It really does. I've so enjoyed our conversation today. It's really inspired me and, you know, given me to keep me on track. It's been a real reminder and refresher in keeping connected to the essence of who we are. I can't tell you how much I've loved this conversation. I've really felt connected to you. I'm so appreciate your work. I can literally feel it physically, the impact that you have on people that spend time with you, really, and it's been an absolute pleasure. It really has.
Likewise.
So I'm so glad.
Thank you for holding this platform.
Sorry.
Thank you for holding this platform and do the work that you're doing, and you know, it's powerful work that you're doing and having these kind of conversations and sharing that out into the world. You know, I'm in awe of you as well. You're very inspiring to me too.
Thank you. I mean, it's great. It's, you know, we get to meet some great people, don't we, along the way. So I appreciate you, and, you know, I'm sure that we'll be connected in the future. You know, a lot of what you do really resonates with me, so I'm sure we'll have you back on the show. It's been a real blast.
Yes.
Take good care of yourself.
Thank you for having me. Take care. Bye.